Hey, how's it going? I'm Cody. I'm the head of development product support at Fedi, and making this tutorial on how to do Nostr data vending machines, which is like AI clients and services over the Nostr network, which is notes and other stuff transmitted over relays. It's like a distributed social media protocol where you can publish jobs and you say, hey, I want this done, like a text to speech or a code review or a summarization or something. And then AI services are just listening for these jobs. And then if it can do the job, then it'll pass back an invoice and say, hey, I can do that. If you pay me some Bitcoin, then I'll do it for you. Right. So this is a really powerful way where if you don't want to have to run a bunch of these AI backends yourself, you can just publish your intention that, hey, I'm willing to pay for anybody who can do like a mid-journey generation or run this GPT-4 thing for me or something. And then the AI services, the backends, they basically just sit there. They act like vending machines, right? Is like, if you put a quarter in me, then I'll put the Coke out, right? Like I'll do the compute for you, well, but only if I get paid, right? And so here we can see a little bit what that looks like. And so this was something I made for the Replit Hack Night, just as an example of this, is I did here a Nostr extension for Replit that lets you publish these jobs. And so I can spin up a backend, which I'll do right now. CD, oh, I'm good here, is a VM run start, and then pass in the config file, which is the actual expert. I just start this guy up. He's connected. And so what the client just did here is the client connected to the Nostr network. And I'm just running this in the same REPL just because, but the backend is just subscribed to a bunch of relays on the Nostr network, right? And so it's saying like, hey, anybody who submits a job that says like, this is something that I'm going to be able to do, like specifically this guy is a like code review bot. I'll send them an invoice. And then if they pay the invoice, then I'll do the job. So let's see what that looks like. Is that I can go here and I can publish a code review job. And the code review job's just going to look like I just copy some code, then I publish it. I go submit job. Right. So what happened here is that I just got a response from this expert. And this expert is saying that, hey, I'm an experienced and empathetic expert reviewer in your coding language. I'm happy to help for some sats. So I need to pay him 10 Satoshis, which is like less than a cent. And if I do that, then he'll do the AI service for me, which is doing a code review. So I zap him, and this was a hackathon project, so my UI is not updating and adjusting, but if just this check invoice status thing takes a little bit. And so cool. So basically it just saw that the invoice was paid, and then it said, okay, I'm going to run that job for you. And so now it's calling OpenAI right now. And so you could run this against whatever you want, right? Like I'm just running against OpenAI because it's super like simple right now. And when you fork this so you can run it yourself, all you have to do is set the OpenAI key. And then for the um, Lightning wallet side is I have it just configured as Ellen bits, which is super simple way to do Lightning payments and stuff. But I'll also make a configuration for this and publish it for using a Lightning address, which is even simpler, right? And so if I go over here, I see that there's a completed job output now. So I click on that, and this is like my crappy formatting because there's a hackathon project, is that now it just tells me like what the output was. This gave me the code review for the code that I gave it. Cool. So let's talk about this for a bit because this is sort of a tutorial on how to get started using clients and services, because we just posted a bunch of bounties as part of the hackathon for if you want to build a Nostr data vending machine client, so something that lets you submit these jobs and see the feedback from them, then you can just get $200 for putting up the bounty for it of just trying your best to make one of these for the hackathon. And then hopefully it's really cool. Hopefully it's interesting in some way or whatever, right? Like the one I did was it does like code reviews, right? But you could also do like mid-journey generations. You could do like have it be tied to like a Claude thing using like the Anthropic API or something, right? Like you like be creative with it, right? And so you just claim the bounty for doing the submission of trying to build a client, and then you're also going to be eligible for the larger hackathon prizes, right? And this is all due in a couple of days, so fun weekend hack project. Cool. So the client or the service, and the service is just an implementation on the back end of just like an interesting AI service. So the one that I had there is like a code reviewer, right? And so here, let's walk through both the front end and the back end and talk a little bit about Nostr as we do it. Okay. So on the front end here, the only thing this is doing is being able to submit jobs to the Nostr network. And so what is Nostr? Nostr is a open social media protocol, basically, where everything just exists as these events. And so everything is an event, right? So when you like something, that's an event. When you pay someone, that's an event. When you subscribe to someone, that's an event. When you follow somebody, that's an event. And the way that the whole thing works is that you have clients that connect to relays, and Nostr stands for notes and other stuff transmitted over relays. And so these are called like events or notes or whatever, right? And so you just subscribe to the network and you say, hey, I want events of this kind, or I want events associated with this public key, where the public key is a specific user. Or based off of the content of this event, I want you to get these other events, right? That's the way the whole protocol works, is you're just subscribing, you're asking for certain types of events. And so for this front end over here, right, I'm just using NDK, which is the Nostr dev kit. And all it's doing here is it just says, hey, I want to initially connect to a relay. And then once I have that connection, then I want to get the public key. So I'm getting the public key, the user's public key off of their Lightning extension right here. And so I highly recommend that you use get alby, which is just like a front end extension that you can use it as a Firefox extension or a Chrome extension, where it's got a Bitcoin wallet and a Nostr pub key associated with it. And so like the client here, the Replit code editor client, like it doesn't get the pub key, right? It doesn't get it doesn't get your private key. You don't have to leak your secret to it. You don't have to give it your actual data for it. You just give it what the public key is. Then we've got some commented out code here for just a different way that you could connect to a single relay instead of multiple. And then over here for handle submit, right? So when I click submit job, what's going on is that I'm making a new event, and the new event is of kind 68005. So if you want like the specific implementation details of how to do jobs and how to do services and stuff, that's all here copied in the NIP, which is the Nostr implementation possibility. That's the protocol that describes how to do all this stuff. Then, so I'm making an event of kind 68005, which is a code review. And I'm saying I'm willing to pay up to 10 Satoshis for it. So this is 10 millisats, sorry, 10,000 millisats or 10 Satoshis. So that is this one. So you like zap 10 Satoshis. And then I say, I want to sign the event. And so when I do that, that's like basically pops up over here in my extension. It signs the event. So my private key never goes into Replit. It just communicates across to the browser extension. And then it says, if there's already a subscription that I'm already subscribed for a job, then close that one and then open a new subscription to those relays that I'd connected to in the init. It says open a new subscription. So open based off these relay connections, I want to find events that reference this job event that I submitted, right? And that's the whole thing. So I submit the job, and then these Nostr bots are listening for those jobs, and they're giving me back invoices that say, hey, I can do that job for you, right? And so if we go to the protocol, what that looks like is I'm submitting a job request. And so I'm doing a 65005, right? Which is just in this range. And I'm calling that a code review. And then the job results and the job feedback is what the service is sending back to me, right? And all this is described in very great detail inside of the NIP 90 Data Vending Machines protocol, which is copied inside of this Repl. So then I go over here, I continue down. And then the other thing I have here is handle zap, which is just when I do the payment. And that's just, I'm checking if they have a Bitcoin wallet attached to the browser, like Alby. And if it is, then I turn it on and I ask it to pay this invoice. And there you go. You could do a bunch more error handling around this stuff. If you want to specifically see how to do that, we made a tutorial video that I'll link inside of here for how to code with WebLM. And then it's just some super basic front end over here, right? Cool. So that's sort of like the front end client, right? So on the client side, how do I submit jobs? And then how do I pay for the services to do the jobs? That's all you have to do on the client side. On the service side, it's a little bit more complicated, right? But I've got a couple of examples here forked off of Pablo, who's the guy that wrote the Data Vending Machines NIP. I've got some examples inside of here for it's Nostr DVM TS. And then there's a README, I believe, inside of here. Nope, no README. So I'll make one right now. And inside of here, I'll put the commands that you need for that. It says there's already a README, which I was just missing. Sorry about that. Right. And so this has like some supported job types. I'll edit this one. The one that I did was code review, right? And so we can kind of look through the backend code and see what that looks like. But for the service, like you can implement this however you want, as long as it's compatible with the protocol, then you're good to go, right? And so the only thing it needs to do is listen for job requests. And if it's a kind that it can do, then it will reply with a job result. And one of these job results can be like an invoice, for example, right? Like the first thing it can be like, hey, the first result that I sent back is here's an invoice for you to pay, right? And so we can go into the specifics of all those. But so yeah, let's go into this back end. And, this gets much more complicated, but it's still interesting, and we can kind of just walk through this stuff. So we look at how the back end is working. So when I set up this bot in the back end, which looks like this, sorry, npm run start, and then pass in a config to the Rust bot. Cool. So what's happening, right, is that it's loading a config file, right? And the config file that I'm passing in just has a couple of config options to it, right? So the one that I just passed in right here is the Rust bot. And the Rust bot says, okay, hey, this is the Rust bot's public key, so that it can, when it publishes the events, it has a pub key. This is the prompt that I'm going to be using for the code review as the system prompt. And then here it's saying, hey, process without payment limit and serve results without payment limit, right? And so just in this specific implementation, the way that it works is that you can have it so that either like doesn't do anything until it gets paid, or it can process in the background before it gets paid, and then once it gets paid, finally serve the results. Or you can just have it like process and serve the results immediately. What's called when it sees the job, and then ask for the invoice afterward, right? So this is like a cool implementation for this. And so that's what's getting in the config file. Then it's connecting to some relays. It's setting up an NDK, which is a Nostr dev kit instance, which is just how you do that. And then I've commented these out just because I'm not using them here, but these are all implementations of different jobs that are supported within here, right? And just like more example code that you can use if you want to use this to build your own service. And so this says like, hey, subscribe, listening for summarized jobs, listening to speech to text jobs. And so if it gets either of those, then it'll process those jobs because it supports those. But the ones that I'm supporting are, I'm listening for kind 68005, which is a code review. And when it does that, I want to do a code review job, right? Well, so when we go down and process job event, is that this takes the event and what type it is. And this basically matches, and it says like, you know, based off the configs, do I immediately start processing, or do I just send back that like, hey, you need to pay this invoice and stuff? That's just this logic over here. Then the undercutting, we don't have to get into this, but this is basically some logic for if you wanted to basically chase down the prices so that if somebody else is running a bot that's doing the same thing yours is, you can undercut him by like 95% or something, right? This is logic for if you want to wait for a payment. So like you say, hey, I can willingly do this job for you, but I have to wait. I'm just going to wait until you pay me and then I'll start doing it. That's this logic. Same logic over here. That's for invoice, not for Zap. And then over here, wait for payment logic, start processing. So this is saying, okay, well now start doing this thing, right? And the one that we're doing is the code review job. So over here is where it does the code review job. And the code review job is that it does new code review. It validates the request. So validate request is just like, you know, make sure that the event is actually of a kind that I can do. And then it does this call to OpenAI over here. And it's just doing the code review, right? And so it uses the system prompt, which is like, you know, setting it up so that it does a code review of like, that's the response that you get. Then, so it's getting it off the config with the prompt there. It's saying, okay, the user's code that they submitted, that's what I'm going to use for the content. That's the thing I'm going to be reviewing. And then it just makes the call. and then it returns that to the, and then it returns that to be published as an event. So let's go where it publishes the event, which is, if we go to main, so here it does the code review job, right? And then it sets output. So if we go here, so we do start processing over there, right? Yeah, so we start processing, and then once we're done, then we finish the event, and then we publish the result, right? And that's the whole thing, right? So this one, like publish status is one event of like, hey, I'm done with the job. And then this publish result is here's the actual results of the job, right? And the reason why you want to distinguish between these is because publish status, like you can put an invoice inside there of, hey, I'm done with the job, now pay me. Or you could just do publish result, right? But so I've got those two together. And so, yeah, that's about it. I mean, that's like the whole backend for it. There's a bunch of stuff inside of here that makes it a little bit more complicated, but I really recommend the way that you go approach this problem is you just go read through the protocol flow and look about how simple it is. You can do like job chaining, you can see some examples, and just use this as sort of like a reference implementation for how to do some of the Nostr related things. And the last one here is just this LN Bits wallet. Is LN Bits is like a super easy way to do the Lightning side of things. And the way that you're going to want to do that is that if you sign up for the hackathon, AI for All, then you can get $40 of free voltage credits. And so that would just be, you go to voltage, you go to like home, and then you do like a billing, right? So somewhere around here. So let me find it. Accounts, billing, and then there's like a coupon code. And so the coupon code is just AI4ALL. So I've already redeemed it, so it's not going to let me do it, but you would be able to get $40 of voltage credits. And then once you set up the voltage credits, then you can go back to using, you can go set up a node. And from the node, you can go to launch a dashboard. And then you can set up an LN Bits wallet and you can just make some payments, right? And you go over here to check for your API info, and that's going to give you the configs for getting invoices to and from it. And then I'm also going to release a version of this, so just look for a link with it that has using a Lightning address instead of using LN Bits. But LN Bits is a super, super easy way to do this, right? And so, yeah, that's basically the whole walkthrough here. And so you set your LN Bits key, you send your voltage, set your voltage endpoint, which is how to hit the wallet. And then you set your OpenAI API key. And then that's it. That's the whole setup for the backend. And you would just run these commands. You do npm run build inside the backend. And then you do npm run start with your config. And so the config here, I'm using the Rust bot, and the Rust bot does this. It's just saying, hey, this is the key, process without payment. So just do all of these things, like give the results and process it without payments up to 1 Bitcoin or whatever, because I just wanted to make it so it just does things, right? Because when you talk to a Rust programmer, he's like more than willing to tell you about Rust and how you should rewrite your code in Rust. And then these were just some other configs that I wanted to use within the code, but you could do whatever you want with this. And it's a super flexible protocol. You can do like basically any AI service, you just submit it. You just have it listen to the Nostr network over a WebSocket. It waits for jobs. It asks for payment for those jobs. And if somebody pays, then it does the job. It's really, really cool. Right. So really excited to see what you build with this. The bounties are for like $200 each. There's a bunch of them for doing clients, a bunch of them for doing services. And it's just a super cool possibility. Like this is why it's called Nostr implementation possibilities, right? Like you can just play with this any way you want. You can chain jobs together. You can have it so that you have a service that listens for when other people do jobs, and then you can like follow up that job finish request, finish result that they did with like a, hey, I saw this is something that another AI service did for you. I can do this stuff to it. Like if you see a transcription, then you could follow it up with, here's like, I could do translations for you if you paid me or something. There's all sorts of cool possibilities. So really excited to see what you build, and please reach out to me if there's anything you want help with. And we've got a bunch of people in the Discord helping out with people building these vending machines. So cool. Hope you hope you enjoyed this, and thanks.